Super excited to announce the Law Firm Retreat Design Your Future being held this August 5th through 8th, 2026 in the Denver, Colorado area. Teaming up with Law Firm Architects, Power Strategy Group, we're going to be having an amazing opportunity for up to 15 firms to work on the business, not in the business. Find out more at powerstrategygroup.com. Welcome back, everyone. This is Ruby Powers with Power Up Your Practice, and I'm excited to talk with Mike Milligan, CFP and founder of One Oak Financial. And we're really going to do some deep dive about tax financial planning, retirement, and really taking control of our firm's finances. So definitely stay tuned, and let's go ahead and start. Mike, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here, Ruby. Hope nobody hit the stop button already when we talked about taxes and financial
Look,
planning.
we're going to help you make more money, save money. So
Right.
Keep listening, okay?
Right.
That was the hook. The reason we started recording later, which you don't know, is that I started asking a lot of questions about taxes and having your business in Puerto Rico, and I got really intrigued. And so,
right.
Anyway,
I mean, we basically had a non-recorded podcast,
exactly.
Right? That would have been, looking back on it, would have been a great podcast.
Well, why don't we go ahead and get started with you? There's something you mentioned about a granny story and what money teaches you. So you had a business venture when you were young, and your grandmother taught you something. So why don't you share that little nugget for us?
It's not really I had a business. My grandmother did. She was
okay.
Yeah. So my grandmother and my grandfather were married for 50 years.
Congrats.
But and he was a small business owner, but early in his 60s, he came down with back problems. He owned a construction company, did a lot of manual labor. We came up with some back injuries, so he had to really shut down his business. But they did not believe in 401ks. They obviously didn't have 401ks back in the 80s. They didn't come out to the 70s, but didn't have 401ks, didn't really invest money, didn't really think about the future. They just assumed that they would keep their business going forever. Well, the business had to shut down. And so she stayed at home. She raised 5 kids and 13 grandkids. I was one of her grandkids, and I spent a lot of time with Granny. But at the age of 11, he couldn't work, and she had to make money. And so she did the one thing she kind of knew how to do. She started cooking, and she would wrap it up and she would take it to job sites where my grandfather used to work. And so she sold collared sandwiches at job sites. They were, it's exactly what it is. It's collards in between 2 pieces of deep fried cornbread. It's absolutely a tremendous lunch dish. The interesting thing that she did, and I didn't know this was interesting at the time, I do now, but she was selling those things for $5 each at a time when a Big Mac cost $1.
Whoa.
Right. And so she was creating this unique experience, boutique, I would say, experience over like a delicious homemade collared sandwich at a time that nobody knew what boutique and unique was in the products. She had no business degree. Matter of fact, she had a 3rd grade education. She could use a calculator, but she couldn't read. I helped her. My role with her during that time was I'd actually count the money. I was her sales team. I would go out and help her sell. And I was just having fun, right? It's where I got my taste of what a business could be, what money was. And, so she knew that I had a propensity to do that. And so she encouraged me to go to college. I was the first person in my family that went to college.
Oh, wow.
And it's kind of cool, right? But it was done because she had to innovate through desperation. And she ended up making enough money to sustain my grandfather passed away when I was 15. So pretty soon after that, back in a cancer diagnosis, she made enough money during that time that we actually invested some of it. When I graduated from college, I immediately got into the financial world and heard about this thing called long-term care insurance. And I knew that she was by herself. And so we used about $125,000 of the money she had earned to buy a long-term care policy. 6 years later, she went into a long-term care facility and stayed in that long-term care facility for 17 years and never had to pay a
Oh,
dime,
wow.
right?
Wow, 17 years. Wow.
Yeah, right. It's insane, but she got up off the mat and she did like the unexpected. Like most people would wallow
Mhm.
in the just the pity or the of having their lifelong partner taken away from them too early when they still had hopes and dreams together. But she built a business and took a little old guy, little old me beside her, and now she is. I mean, I follow the career and the teachings of like Steve Jobs and Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, and Darren Hardy is a big guy that I read on, because I think you
Mhm.
always got to have aspirational people that go see how they built their wealth and how they make decisions. And so I read a lot of their materials. But like the other person that's kind of on my Mount Rushmore of business expertise is Granny Elizabeth, because she did it with no education. She just did it with common sense and did an amazing job at it.
This episode is sponsored by Candle AI, the legal email assistant that helps legal teams spend less time on client emails. You heard me right, spending less time on emails. Candle AI works with both Gmail and Outlook, so you don't have to learn a new tool. And then it connects with popular case management systems like Clio, Filevine, INSSoom, and more to come. It instantly shows you your case and the client details the moment you open a client email, and right inside your inbox. And then that means less context switching and time spent jumping to different tabs to figure out what you need to respond. Candle can also draft context-aware responses to client emails and makes it easy to create, edit, and manage your email templates. If you want to save time and take back control of your inbox, check out Candle AI. I highly suggest it.
That's awesome. I'm thinking about those quotes about like the if necessity is the mother of invention, then perhaps desperation is the mother of innovation, or all the different ones in that category. But I think I look at this a couple of ways. One, you saw a great role model. You saw someone who took a tough situation and made lemonade or collard sandwich, which I
Yeah.
had to look up a collard sandwich. Even though I went to UNC, I never had one, so sorry. Apparently it's like a local delicacy in certain counties, I guess. I don't know. I was like, you put it between bread, but cornbread makes more sense. Like I could see
Yeah.
that. And okay, deep fried. Okay. But I love that because my grandparents on both sides were entrepreneurs, and so just watching them, I had a big impact on me, and I try to get that for my children too. Actually, just today they were in the office working, and it was summer break, and I asked them, I was like, "What did you think about that?" And they were both like, "It was surprisingly fun." And so
Mhm.
I was really excited to hear that.
That's awesome. But by the way, I'm Tar Heel born, I'm Tar Heel bred, and when I die, I'll be Tar Heel dead.
Okay. Well, I mean, one of those things behind me
Yeah.
is the yeah, you can see UNC there. So
Yeah,
the diploma.
if they're Tar Heel people on here, they'll get that. They'll get that reference right there.
Yeah. Well, so what a great role model. And I think that really helped you get started early in your financial acumen journey. And I think one of my set of grandparents that had the farm in Missouri, I saw lots of things, and there was always like taxes this and
Yeah.
incorporate here and do this and whatever. And I was always like sort of taking little bit, but I never really got the full picture. And I think unless someone teaches you or you have a keen interest or you just do a deep dive, this it's not really laid out in front of you. So a lot of this financial literacy, and I feel like I've been learning more in the last, like, I don't know, 5 years or so of my life, and really doing more of a deep dive.
Yeah, there's a lot that have paved all of our ways. Those of us who are somewhat successful in life, there's these little things we can go back to and realize that's when we first got a taste that
Mhm.
drove our desire for more. And like for me, it's definitely the granny story, but then it kind of pushed forward. And like when I went to college, which was unknown territory for my family, right? I literally showed up at college with like a suitcase, and everybody else was bringing in like bunk beds and refrigerators and microwaves. And I'm like, crap, they don't provide all this for us. My family didn't know; they'd never been. But I mean, we kind of figured it out as we went, and I've never been afraid to be in a room with people in a place I've never been, because every place I've gone, every wealthy person I've got in front of, every time I did something, it's most of the time my first time, right?
Mm,
Because I grew up, I didn't know I was poor. I never knew I was poor because I was loved and I always had food, right? But I was
mhm.
poor, right? I was dirt poor. And that's why it kind of gets me. That's why I'm really excited about like the work I do now and like educating, coaching, and planning with people, because I have a perspective that is different, especially from like the tax standpoint. And I know a lot of your listeners are work in law firms or run law firms, and taxes are by far and away the biggest expense we ever pay, like by a
Yeah,
long stretch.
yeah.
And I've become a student of tax planning. Tax planning is different than tax preparation, because one is done in the past, one is done in the present for the future. And it's so unique that most people just don't understand the difference between those two things.
And along my journey, I have been learning this. I was learning it the hard way, because I thought when I hired a CPA, that meant that they were doing the tax planning, but it was really mostly just tax preparation,
Yeah.
unless they were a special CPA firm that had some type of another add-on to it. And so that's one thing I've learned the hard way this last, I don't know, whatever, 16 and a half years of having the law firm. And then if there and then and not until maybe you get a financial planner that's working in conjunction with your CPA,
Yeah.
and they're talking to each other in real time and not waiting until it's too late. Some things you can still do in the next tax year, but some things you can't. And really you need to have the history of the finances, and you need to have the long game, and you need to be also talking about the future and what your plans are for any big moves. So I think I wrote about that in my book, The Power of Your Practice, was like, you really have to have the right team that you can
Mhm.
trust, and they're all doing their function, because if there's a deficiency anywhere, there could be a huge gap in the strategy. But anyway, keep going.
Yeah, and
I get frustrated about this. I get
I
passionate
wrote
about it too.
about, and the thing about taxes that just nobody realized. I'm glad you've come into the realization, like, about the power of a team. Is the thing about taxes is the CPAs are, in general, amazing people,
Mhm.
but they're naturally introverted. That's why they chose their profession, right? They would rather work with numbers and paper, right? They're not generally outgoing folks. But if you think about their workflow, right, somewhere around January 15th, they start getting working for the year after coming off a break, because corporate taxes are due March 15th. And they're always, and then individual taxes are due April 15th. But what they do on both, a large percentage of their corporate and personal tax returns, they do extensions that get the extensions out to September 15th, October 15th. But a lot of what CPAs do is they chase paper, right?
Mhm.
They'll, like, my account. I'm a financial planner who does tax planning. And Allie, who is my CPA, who does my tax prep in the United States, and Dell, who does my tax prep in Puerto Rico, they always, after I send in everything, they send me a list of things they need.
Mhm.
And what I'll do is I'll give it to them, and then they'll say, I need this. Accountants generally chase paperwork.
Mhm.
They're historians, because they're chasing paperwork for things that have happened in the
Happened
past.
already. Mhm.
Right. And a tax planner is going to, number one, get you better organized for when the tax prep happens, because they're going to, have everything detailed and listed. But the other thing is, they're going to know the ins and outs of why structure matters and how you set up a business. They're going to understand that there's certain elements of your business, whether it's, you host events, right, where you bring staff together, and they're going to be able to talk about, like, the Augusta rule. The Augusta rule allows people in Augusta, Georgia, to rent out their home for 2 weeks a year during the Masters, and
Mhm.
that money is tax free. Well, the interesting thing about people who live in Augusta is they're U.S. citizens. So if you live in Houston, Texas, or Dallas, or Midland, or Milwaukee, or Los Angeles, or New York City, the Augusta rule applies to you too. You could
Mm.
rent out your home. Now, you're probably not going to rent it out for somebody to stay at your house for an event. So what else could you rent your home for? You could rent your home for corporate meetings, for client entertainment. You can rent it for in-person like Zoom meetings like this, right? As a studio, if they're high ticket, high revenue items. And if you document it correctly under the rules, the Augusta rules, you can take the money from your business to your personal tax-free. And most business owners don't even really know that exists because they don't live in Georgia, right? And most CPAs don't have a chance to look at that. Then you've got the whole idea of, you mentioned earlier about how your kids came into the office today and they work. Are you going to pay them for their time today, or did you just
Yes, I
get
am. I told them I'm going to pay them, and I don't want to pay. I don't want it to go to me because I want it to go to them, and so to their direct accounts.
Yeah.
Or
So
how would you suggest that? And go ahead. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of these little tips and tricks that people are finding out on like TikTok or YouTube or something. And then they're going to maybe their CPA or their financial. I mean, the financial planner knows that, but like maybe they don't have a financial planner. And then,
you just made a generalization on something about financial planners know this.
Okay.
Most financial planners do not know tax planning.
Okay.
Their firms will not allow them to do tax planning. So like the big guys, Edward Jones, Fisher Investments, JP Morgan. I could just keep going with names, right? On the big firms.
Thanks for catching me on that.
Yeah. The big firms tell their advisors, we do not do tax planning. Matter of fact, at the bottom of all of their websites, if you look down, they will say, we do not do tax planning. Consult your CPA. They don't say consult your tax planner. They say your CPA.
And see, that's the whole thing. It's like we just get to put it on a runaround. Like, okay, you
Absolutely.
don't do it and you're not doing it. And then who the hell is doing it?
So there's very few of us out there who are doing tax planning and retirement, investment, long-term care, and legacy work. And see, like the few of us that do it and that do it very well understand that, like for you with your kids, it would be very appropriate to set up like a family management company where you could pay. Now, you can't really pay your kids as 1099 because you're your kids. You would need to pay them as a W-2 employee. But the great thing about like kids, if you paid them, $14,000 a year, well, guess what? There's a standard deduction for that amount. And so if there's a standard deduction for it, that means they don't pay any tax on it. And it's also a tax benefit to you. It reduces your income. And so what would your kids do with that money? Well, they could set up a Roth IRA, right? That, you want to talk about compound interest with the time. Set something up for a 10-year-old and get the average returns of the market for the next 60 years and see how much money that is. That's a large number, right? The other thing they could do, though, is they could pay cell phone bills. They could pay car insurance. They could pay, utilities in your home because they live there. So you basically can get tax-free money out of your business. In your case, tax-free money out of your business, pass it through to your kids as W-2 employees up to the limit that's tax-free. And now you have money for the home that is tax-free. And so there's a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners who are doing this. They just don't know how to structure and set it up. They hear it, like you said, they hear it on TikTok, they hear it on Facebook, they hear it on Instagram. And then they go out and they use AI to try to set it up. And where the IRS gets folks is when they do it wrong. They don't know how to dot the I's and cross the T's. And remember, TikTok and Instagram is just out there to try to get you, to get your attention. They're not there to teach you how to do it per se. They're to get your attention to sell you something, right? And a lot of people are getting that with the idea of trying to sell more exotic strategies like solar panels or software or something that is, way out there in left field as far as what the average business owner needs for their business. That's why working with like a tax planner is so important, like who understands, who not only understands it, but number two, who has done it themselves. See, taxes were my biggest expense in my life. They are the biggest expense for most people, but I made the move to Puerto Rico to make taxes to make taxes no longer the biggest expense of my life. They're not. Right now, they will be when you add them up over my whole life. They'll still be the biggest expense, but I went from from almost a 34% effective rate, right, on what I paid to two. I say, 32% of all the income I bring in now is not being taxed. And I'm doing it legally with structure, dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and just doing it because of another tax hack called geographic arbitrage. Now, you live in a state that is perfect for geographic arbitrage, Texas, because of state income tax, right? A lot of corporations have moved from California to Texas because of that. But geographic arbitrage is a big one. And it's big for like business owners if they really think, even though they may not be ready to move now, if they're thinking about exit strategy in the future, like they're thinking about selling their business in the future, would you rather sell it when you pay maybe 2% tax or when you pay 24?
2.
Right, of course. And so that's where tax planning comes in, because taxes
So you need to move to Puerto Rico before you sell your firm.
Correct. That's right. That's the and maybe it's not Puerto Rico. Maybe it's some other another strategy. Maybe it's taking back a self-canceling note, right, where you spread out the gain of your business over time. I mean, everybody has a different situation. Everybody is unique and really one of a kind. But the tax code, there's not all of these loopholes in the tax code for us to ignore. They're there for us to use. See, the tax code is just not a place. It's not a bill that you pay at the end of the year, like your utility bill or your cell phone bill. It's this maze that you walk through, and when you find something that is good for you, you pull it off the shelf and say, "Yes, I'll take that $5,000 deduction. Yes, I'll take that $100,000 deduction. Yes, I'll take this." And you just piece them all together, and when you do, it's lower taxes. That's what tax planning is.
So, like just yesterday, one of my contractors told me that her son watched a video on TikTok about a tax advice, and then she used that and saved her $20,000. But that's what I mean. I know I'm not like my sister listens to TikTok a lot too, and she was telling me stuff. Anyway, but like I agree with what you're saying. Why don't we do a couple more tax ideas for business owners, because this is really good, and then maybe go a little bit more into some like retirement planning or exit strategy, retirement in general, because I think these are I think from what I know is that most people, if they're not really into this space, they sort of avoid this space because they don't know better, and it sort of scares them. And then they rely on these different advisors who maybe are not fitting the bill for what they absolutely need. And so that's one of my friends retired at 40, and he gave me a list of like 17 books to read, and finances books, and I'm down to like the last 5. So anyway, but like I've been on my little self-education financial world this last like year and a half or so. But I love what you're saying, and that's exactly I've heard of these things, but I haven't like put all of them in action. So
there's a couple of other like the number one thing you could do from a tax standpoint is understand your business structure. So like, for instance, somebody listening in California probably needs to be a C corp because of the punitive nature of pass-through entity, right, of like S corp. Whereas somebody in Texas needs to 100% be an S corp. See, structure matters. There's also the thing of, where does the structure of your corporation, where's it housed, right? I mean, North Dakota and Nevada have better tax and liability protection than other states in the country, right? So structure is the number one thing, right? And like one of the things that's on TikTok, I didn't realize we were going to talk about TikTok this much. I like it. But one of the things going around is like this whole idea of like you put a layer of trust together, like so many trusts, and then you house them in like these different states. And so it just makes it impossible for the IRS to find where the money is. That's not a tax strategy. That's called tax avoidance, right? What I'm talking about with tax structures, I'm not trying to get you to have 11 different trusts in 7 different states. I'm just talking about to make sure that if you are a small business owner, even a large business owner, that you have the structure right, because the structure is then what will inform the loopholes, right, that are available for the business. So the second one was was the Augusta rule. That's a fantastic hack that most people just don't know about. And you can go see the history of that. And I did a decent job explaining it, but it's basically taking money from your business to your personal side to do things at your primary residence, business meetings, entertainment and the such. The third one is after that is most of us drive cars, right? And as long as we don't drive to the same spot every day, right? As long as we're not going from home to the same office every day, we're using our car for other things. There's a part of the tax code, it's a section 179 deduction with some bonus depreciation that allows you to buy an automobile like over 6,000 pounds. I know people in Texas love those 6,000 pound cars, right? The big cars. You have your business buy it, and you get to depreciate the value of it, right?
Uh-huh.
For your and you basically buy a car with tax-free dollars. Now, the double leverage that, by the way, you notice I said you buy your car with tax-free dollars because you get reduced. You could still take a car loan, right? So you don't have to pay cash for it. You could still take a car loan and qualify for the deduction, which is huge. A couple other things is like if there's anybody who's like a solo practitioner who doesn't have employees, just has like maybe some contractors, there is the enhanced retirement contributions of like a solo K. It's a 401k, but just for one person. Whereas like most people who are in a corporate structure with multiple employees are limited to, 24,000 or 31,500 of contributions, right? As a solo practitioner, you can get much more, almost upwards of $80,000. And if you're married, you can do the same thing for your spouse, even if they're not day-to-day working in your company. So you could take some revenue out and push it there. So there's that. And then you've got like some of the great programs out there that AI has brought to us. So like software and data centers and solar. So software, data centers, and solar have become these are loopholes in the system. They've become the new tool to get tax-free dollars out of your business. And, and they're great and they're good. I shouldn't say they're great investments. They're good investments if you understand what you're doing. And then the last one is just geographic arbitrage. Like being like for me, it's Puerto Rico. For others, it's Panama. For some, it's just like, again, moving California to Texas, Oklahoma to Texas, California to Nevada, New York to Florida. That movement, that simple movement from one place to another can create a lot of tax leverage where you actually need to keep more of your money. And that's the biggest thing, right? Is if taxes are the biggest expense, how much of that tax, instead of paying it, can we keep for ourselves? Because it's not like our government is exactly efficient with how they spend our money, right? They actually overspend it and put us in more debt. So why should we feel guilty about trying to keep more of our hard-earned money that we've earned for ourselves?
Houston's going, and a lot of cities in town and the US are having like FIFA. I've heard of people renting out their houses. I'm in Houston for the games and things like that. But and the other one you were mentioning about your children being employees.
Yeah.
I'd heard about that. It just they weren't really like big enough to do something until like recently. But I know sometimes people might just have them do something that might remotely be of value. But anyway, I just had them work today. And but those are and the one about the 6,000 pound vehicle, that reminds me, I had a friend who had a Winnebago RV, and then she was, I think, renting it out too, because like you can do temporary rentals for those types of things as well. But those are all great. Thanks for sharing that. And the geographic arbitrage, I've been planning to do some type of rotation where I go to the states or countries that I enjoy living, but I hadn't really thought about it from like the tax perspective, which I should have been thinking about that. So I need to go take think about that and put that lens into my calculus.
Well, one thing I will share with you about the family piece for a second, right? Is I for those that are actually can see this, right? There's one little there's a place you can go. It's called investor.gov and get on compound interest calculator.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just say you had and I'll do just a quick example for the listeners and try to explain it well for those who are not seeing this. But let's say you put $1,000 in an account, but then you contribute $250 a month for 40 years and you get a 10% return. And that ends up being a pretty good amount of money. It's $1.3 million. But let's say you do that for let's say you do that for a 10-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of doing it for 40 years, you do it for 60 years. It's the same amount, $1,000 to start, $250 a month, 60 years with 10% interest. Instead of $1,373,000, you now have $9,409,000. And that's the interesting part about compound interest that people don't get in starting their own family company, their own family management company, like you're doing with your kids.
Mm-hmm.
Is if you actually understand how time and money work together and how investments work, the longer you have money invested in the market, like you do in a family management company for your kids, and them saving money, those were not big numbers. $1,000 a month to start, $250 a month, not big numbers at all. But the difference that time made was $8,100,000.
This might be a controversial question, but is it better to do that or to put it in the 529?
Yeah, I mean, listen, 529s. Can you tell me what colleges are going to look like in 20 years?
No, and I don't even. Yeah. I saw a headline and I questioned this myself. What are the degrees in the programs? I don't know. I mean, I'm in academia too, but I care. But I don't know. I mean, I think there's options to move the money to something else, but I don't know.
I say that with a little bit of sarcasm about what is college going to look like in 20 years. Colleges will still be around. I mean, there's no doubt, because doctors need the advanced level of education, right? Attorneys need the advanced level of education. We need our teachers to have something more than a high school degree. There are degrees that matter, but it's probably not going to look the exact same for every student. You and I, when we were coming through high school, you went to high school, you went to college, right? If you wanted to get ahead, right? Maybe a few years before us, maybe some people went high school to the military or high school to the workforce, but our generation we went to college first. I don't necessarily know with the advent of AI, with sales jobs that are out there, with the service-based industries becoming more, if college is going to be, I think diversification is the key. If you could put money into an account for a kid, the most flexible account you should do is a Roth IRA, a custodial Roth IRA. No, but they have to earn money in order to do that. So the second, in July 4th of this year, there's going to be some new accounts for minors that start. They're called the Trump accounts. I don't know if you've heard about these.
I think I did. Yeah.
Yeah, but you could put up to $5,000. Most people think those are only for people born in 2025, 2026, but it's anybody under the age of 18. Little misunderstanding. Anybody under 18.
Clarification. Okay.
Yeah, but it's just these most recent ones. They're getting funded some seed money from the government. So anybody born 2025, 26, 27, 28. So for 4 years, a new child gets $1,000 a seed, but you could put up to 5,000. So, fund the Roth, fund the Trump account, right? Because those are low cost index funds, then fund to 529. Give your kids some opportunities, right? To do some of all of it, but anything that has more time, 10 to 20 more years to grow, is going to exponentially be bigger. Not by a little bit. It's going to be exponentially bigger. And it just, money saved for kids, especially tax-free money that comes from entrepreneurs putting money aside, it is gold. It is absolutely gold. And then, the one thing you said is 529. We could also talk about is the stock market going to be the same thing in 20 years, 30 years that it is now? No, it's not, right? Is because, 30 years ago, ETFs really didn't even exist, exchange traded funds. Mm-hmm. 60 years ago, mutual funds really did not exist. I mean, in small numbers, but they really didn't exist. 100 years ago, we had not even had the Great Depression yet. We were right before it. And,
Yeah.
people just kind of got a little crazy intuition then about that. Things will change, but I'm telling you, the one thing that's definitely going to change is the tax code. The tax code is going up. And, the amount we're going to pay in taxes. So anything we can get for our kids that builds wealth, even when taxes go up, it's going to be better that they have something to pay taxes on than to have nothing at all and be stuck in an environment where where taxes are even a bigger part of their life.
Are you feeling overwhelmed by all the different things you have to do to run a law firm? Well, you're not alone. So many law firm owners are in the same boat. That's where Staffy steps in. More than 90 firms, just like yours, are leaning on their bilingual virtual staff for legal, administrative, marketing, and client-facing work, plus their full HR support. I currently have 11 team members with Staffy across my own firm and Power Strategy Group, and it's been a total game changer. Schedule a free initial consultation at staffy.cc, that's STAFI.cc, and use the code RUBY, RUBY, for $500 off.
We're getting to the close, and we had so much fun talking about taxes that we didn't talk about retirement very much. But what would you say to a law firm owner, business owner that's I don't know, what would be the minimum they should be doing or should have in their arsenal for their retirement? Because I'll be honest, like I was like, my husband's married. I'm married to my husband. He works for these big corporations. There's all these like fancy whatevers, and I didn't have that financial literacy earlier on in my law firm. And so I thought, oh, okay, well, there's something there because that's mine too, but then I realized, no, I need to have stuff for myself, and we need to maximize this and tax, evaluating the tax and everything. And the more we put in, some of these are more beneficial and everything. So I feel like I'm in a way better place than I was, maybe a decade or so ago. But for those listening, what would you say they should definitely be doing right now?
I mean, lawyers are getting compressed on fees, just like a lot of industry. Attorneys are not making as much per hour in general as they did, 10 years ago, mainly because of inflation, but also because of competition, both within the industry and through AI. They're just not making as much. And so you have to prepare for the future. And there's a lot of really great ways to do that, whether or not it's setting up a 401k. If it's, you can create like a cash balance pension for yourself, or for the high partners, the high earning partners in a practice, so they eventually will have retirement income. But the key to all retirement planning is you've got to be willing to delay gratification today. I mean, I don't spend all of my money today to be able to have some for the future. And that's and a lot of times, I think the newer generation of attorneys, they don't feel as compelled to have the country club membership and drive the highest end cars. They're more grounded than maybe what attorneys from the 70s, 80s, and 90s were, like from a prestigious standpoint. There's a lot of very successful people who drive a lot of great cars and, live in the country club. I'm not disputing that, right? There's a lot of like delaying gratification. The other piece that you have is that your law firm has value. And the PE world, the private equity world has kind of opened their eyes over the last 4 or 5 years to the law field. And when your firm has value, just like I said, delay gratification to save some for retirement, your firm has a value that is worth more when you pay attention to the numbers. Because valuations is not based off of who you are as an attorney. It's based off of what the firm made off of you as an attorney. And could the PE firm come in and pay an attorney to make the same amount of money for the firm, right? So
is it replicatable?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that's why you have to run your business like a business.
Right.
Processes and systems in place to do that. And that's where one of the things that we come in is in the pre-show, I told you that a lot of people work with financial advisors who work at these big companies, and these financial advisors sign the back of the check. They're employees.
Mm-hmm.
Law firms are entrepreneurial in nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you should work with somebody who's doing the same thing you're doing, who signs the front of the checks, right? Who pays employees, who's understanding the value, so that you guys can mastermind and talk about how you're building firm value for the exit, whether or not that's a sale to a private equity firm, whether or not it's an ESOP plan, an employee stock ownership plan, whether or not it's just selling to junior partners or a merger with somebody else. You have to be your advisory team, the team you're building doesn't need to be employees at a company. They need to be like-minded people who are as successful. I'll kind of leave this topic with this one, Ruby, is we as financial advisors in the workplace are the ones always asking for tax returns, investment statements. Show me your life insurance contract, show me your P&L. But for attorneys, I don't think attorneys would have a problem with this. I say this in my book, The One-of-a-Kind Financial Plan. Before you hand over that information, you should ask a financial advisor, show me your tax return, show me your balance sheet, show me your investment statements. Because the person who has the power in the relationship is not the advisor. They just have the knowledge. A good one has knowledge. The one who has the power is the client who has problems that need to be solved. And what they need to do is find somebody who has solved problems in their personal life, who are successful on paper, at least you could see that, and who are doing things that you would want to do. And if you're working with somebody who is smaller minded, whose income is less than yours, they don't understand your situation. And that's why you have to be bold enough to say, I need to see how you're doing, because I want to make sure that you're not sustaining your life off the recommendations you're making for me. And that's how we've built our firm is anybody who wants to see my tax returns, I'll show it to them. Anybody who wants to see my balance sheet, my investments, what I have, I'll show it to them. Why not?
That's
you're going to sign
pretty bold. Oh, NDA.
Oh yeah, I mean, you're going to sign an NDA, right? But you're going to see. I'll let you see it. And by the way, I'll do the comparison, right? If we are the same age, right? We're not comparing like what our past is. You just want to see that somebody's successful, because there's some people, like I never got an inheritance, right? So my numbers may not look as good as somebody else who's 50 years old who got a $500,000 inheritance somewhere along the way, right? I had to pick up and from college sandwiches to founder of a nationwide investment company, right? I have to do what's, I've done and earned everything myself. But I am one of those bold people, right? I go in rooms I never should have been in. And I will show people things that most financial advisors would be embarrassed to show, like how they manage their money. But I'll show my stuff.
Well, that's awesome how transparent and how real you are about this. And I agree. It's almost like when you hire a consultant to advise you, you want to know that what their resume is and what they've accomplished, because you want to know, can they help bring you to where they've been or where they've, to their level. Mike, it's been so great. We're gonna have how can people find you and stay in touch with you, and also mention your 2 latest books so they can take a look for those.
If you can go out to Amazon and you can find the One-of-a-Kind Financial Plan. One-of-a-Kind Financial Plan is a book I wrote in 2025. It's like how to build the purpose, vision, and the financial plan so you can go live a one-of-a-kind life. And that book is hard hitting as far as like how financial professionals are paid and what a real fiduciary is. Then my most recent book is called Retirement Deja Vu. And I can just tell you right now, the 20 biggest financial firms in America hate this book, because it's like I've told stories where it's profit over people, where stories are getting lost in account systems, and where just in general, names are being replaced with account numbers. And I tell the story. It's my manifesto against the one size fits all world. And I am tearing them up, because so often people need something more than that. And then if people want to connect with me, you could just go to my website, mikemilligan.com. And from there, you'll see my philosophy on educate, coach, and plan, and you can get to One Oak Financial from there, our planning division. If you need education for you and your employees to increase your financial literacy, I teach at ODU, Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia, and we can get your employees into a personal financial planning course, non-credit personal financial planning course that at the end of it, they'll understand budgeting, psychology of money, investments, healthcare, all of the such that you may not have time to do. And then if you just want to reach out to me directly, you can text me. It's pretty simple. You text to the number instead of writing in the full phone number. Just do 600-700, and you can just put in the message ideas. 600-700 to ideas, and you'll get directly to me.
Wow, that's convenient. Well, Mike, it's been great. Thanks for giving us this this education. For those, maybe it's a reminder. For those, it's maybe the first time they're hearing some of these things. And, just the importance of having the right team members between the CPA, financial advisor, those who are at the level that and working together on your goals and making sure that you know what you need in that team and what you're trying to accomplish, but then also knowing there's a lot of these opportunities out there to help minimize your tax bill, and you can find ways and also be thinking about your future with your family, your retirement, your firm valuation. There's so much to unpack here, and I'm really grateful for all your advice, Mike. And thanks everyone for listening. And have a great day. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to Power Up Your Practice. I'm Ruby Powers, and it's been a pleasure sharing this time with you. We love your reviews. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us one and share this podcast with someone else so that they can know what you've been learning on our show. And make sure to check out the Power Up Your Practice book. It's available in paperback and Kindle on Amazon. It's packed with 25 chapters of strategies to grow and streamline your firm. And we also have the free Power Hub community on School to keep the conversation going in between the episodes. So make sure to keep powering up your practice, and we'll see you next time.